Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Hello. Welcome to our Cube Table Talk.
What's up, everybody? We're back. We're so excited to be here for this very special holiday episode.
Yes, I am Dr. Marcia Burden-Tiggs, and next to me I have the lovely...
I am Pastor Kimberly, man.
Yes, and we are your co-hosts of our Cube Table Talks, where we keep it real.
Where we keep it relevant.
And where we keep it raw. Yes, so you might be wondering, where are the peoples? They all abandoned us. No, I'm just playing. No. This episode, we wanted to be special. We wanted to be intimate. We wanted to wrap up the year, but we also wanted to talk about grief and different aspects of it and how to navigate it, because really that's something that we typically don't want to talk about.
Absolutely.
So we said, well, we'll just talk about it,
We'll
right?
just talk about it. Let's just talk about it. So we're so excited, and we want to get right into our first segment, What's Good, Church?
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
What's good, church? And by church, I mean y'all in the chat, y'all watching. So, Hey, everybody, this is our segment, What's Good, Church, where we talk about what's happening in the church world, what's happening in the religious world and the world around us. And so, as we're talking about grief, we want to talk about grief from a biblical perspective. Now, this for me particularly hits home because when my father passed away when I was 17, and I distinctly remember, feeling very sad about it. And I remember having church people come to me and say, we don't grieve the way other people grieve because he's sleeping. And so, wipe your tears, dry your face, you'll see him in heaven. And I'm just like, wait. Pause. Sometimes we as church folk, we don't necessarily know what to say. And so we give people this biblical perspective, right? And, we'll be caught up to meet him in the air. And, as Seventh-day Adventists, one of our fundamental beliefs, we believe that when you die, you are asleep, that your body doesn't go to heaven, like grandma and papa, not our Father's not in heaven looking down on us, right? So that's something that we believe is a part of our core foundational values. But also because we don't believe that, when people go to funerals or say things like, oh, they're in heaven looking down, sometimes we can be quick to be like, they're not in heaven, don't put them in heaven, and we sometimes don't know what to say. So how do we address grief from a biblical perspective that doesn't shut down people's grief, but that really addresses people's grief?
I mean, if you read scripture, Jesus, our greater example, that's just a beautiful story of grief. And, from the separation that sin caused, really, and there was crying and weeping. And I mean, there's so many. David, he was in a constant state of grief a lot of times, the mother of Jesus, Mary, right? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We can see grief throughout the Bible, even from the beginning with Adam and Eve and with the death of their son. Can you imagine how that was? That one son, is the reason of others. So we see grief throughout. I think that scriptures are there. There are scriptures that give us hope and support during the time of grief. I know personally for me, when my father passed, that was literally the only way that I could get through the process continually, is to look to the scriptures and look for words of encouragement through scriptures and through songs, so that you'll have a hope. And even when you feel sad, you kind of can lean on those scriptures to give you kind of a little more of a like, okay, it's going to be all right. So pastor, and put you on the hot seat. what are some of the scriptures? Amen.
I knew that was coming.
Let's get it from the pastor, right? What are some of the scriptures that you like to, either share with others, lean on personally?
So the biggest one for me is Revelation 21, Revelation 22, where it talks about there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and that the former things have been passed away, and that there will be no more grief, no more death, no more dying, no more sadness, no more sorrow, right? For the old order of things, right?
Right.
And so for me, that gives me hope, because death and grief is a part of this current order of things. Like, that's just how things are happening in this world, but that there will be a new way to go through things. So that's always a big one for me. But when we talk about grief, right? Grief is not just grief over death of a person.
Correct.
But people grieve the loss of a job. You can grieve the loss of your health. You can grieve the loss of a friendship or relationship, especially at this time of year. Like, friendships be breaking up. People who you thought you were going to be introducing them to the family at the Thanksgiving dinner end up being an ex, and now your whole family's like, whatever happened to so and so, and you like, please don't even bring up their name. So there's a lot of different types of grief that show up, but I look at how the Bible addressed different people's grief, right? So I remember, I'm thinking of when Jesus was dying on the cross, right? And he knew that his mom was going to have to navigate loneliness.
Right.
So he says to his mom, John, there is your mother. Mother, there is your son. So he puts in place community, right? And so I think that's a part of grief, how the Bible addresses grief, is get in community. Right? Grief definitely makes you want to stay alone in your pajamas under the cover. But I think that from a biblical perspective, you need community, right? You need someone to lean on, right? That's her baby boy. And now she's watching him be crucified. So he says, here is your mother, here is your son. So he says, here's someone you can be comforted by. So I think being able to have someone to comfort you is biblical, not just being like, oh, wipe your tears, get over it. That is not biblical, right? So allowing people to sit in their grief. I think about the story of Job. When Job was going through all of this stuff, like, God didn't rebuke the friends for not being good friends. He rebuked them because he was like, you guys didn't just listen. Right. You said stuff that wasn't true, trying to figure out what to say when you should have just said nothing at all. And I think that's also a biblical prescription for grief. You don't have to know the answers to everybody's situation. Well, maybe you went through this because you didn't listen to the Lord, or maybe you should just be quiet, right? So I think that's also a biblical perspective for grief, is just, you don't have to know what to say. You can just be with the person while they're navigating it and while they're going through it. So I think those are just two specific examples that the Bible shows us how we can be there for someone during grief. The Bible also says laughter is good medicine, right? So, find time to laugh. It's, people always think, at least maybe, I won't say people, but I always think it's interesting how funerals are so sad, but by the time the funeral is over, you're taking pictures with your family, you're laughing, you're joking. And it feels so weird that these two very opposite emotions can exist in the same space, where you're grieving this loved one who's lost and loving on your cousin that you haven't seen in forever. So I think the repast goes with the funeral, because those two things help to bring healing and closure. So, I think those are a couple of different biblical perspectives. What about you?
Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. I don't think sometimes we're comfortable being uncomfortable in our grief, as in the sense, in the place that we are when we're in it. A lot of times you just want to get out of it. You want to get out of it, and you want to get it out of it quickly. But shout out to Mia Powell. She does a lot of work with grief and support at First Church. And I never thought about it this way, but sometimes you actually need a good cry. You need a good cry, and you can't run away from that place. You have to be in it. And it's very uncomfortable. And I'll speak for myself. Who wants to be in that place of vulnerability? First of all, you definitely don't want to do it around people, but even in and of yourself. Who really wants to sit there and cry? And not stop until it's all out? Mercy. Because a lot of times, especially in the society that we're in, and really sad for when it comes to like genders and different races. It's not acceptable to cry.
Not. Very much
It's
so.
not acceptable to actually not be okay and be in that space of not being okay until you need to get out of that space.
That's very true.
And so I like weeping may endure for a night, but joy will come in the morning. And I want to shout out to one of my favorite gospel artists, Ty Tribbett. He says, weeping may endure for a night, only one night though. Right? And that's my motto. So I'm not the friend that's gonna sit there and cry with you. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not that friend. But I'm the friend that says it's okay to cry.
Yeah.
Have that moment. Get it all out and let's get to the morning. Right? And so that's how I feel like you can have the funeral, you can have those moments of sadness and you can come back out with a smile, because that is just the natural order of things. God does not want us to stay in those negative spaces, but wants us to not run away from them either.
Absolutely. And I think Elisha is also a good example of God giving us space to grieve, right? Because we don't always think of Elisha in being in a space of grieving. But remember, he goes and does this big thing where he goes against Baal and God is victorious. And then Jezebel's after his life and he runs into this cave and he runs and runs and runs and he gets to this place and he is at the end of himself. And God doesn't say, get up. God doesn't say, he does tell him eventually to get up. But God isn't like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? Didn't we just win this victory? Do you know who you are? Literally, he sends angels to minister to him, to say, eat and rest, right? And then he runs some more and then he eats and rests again. Like, sometimes we can't hear what God is saying when we're so deep in our grief. And so I think even that particular story shows us that, like, God does give us time. So, I think for me, I think I'm kind of the opposite person, where I'm like, when we talk about weeping may endure for a night and joy comes in the morning, like that morning, it may take time for some people. And I think it's okay to give people room for their morning to take a little bit longer than somebody else. And I think we do people a disservice when we want them to process as fast as we do. Right? So I love that when Elisha was mourning the fact that he did this great thing for God and now he's running for his life, God was like, take a nap and eat some food, because you're going to need some strength for the journey ahead. And I think that that's beautiful. When you're grieving, eat some food, get some rest.
Yeah. And again, it's a process and it's an individual process. So nobody can dictate you when it starts, when it stops, how it goes. And so I want to encourage everybody just to encourage people, pray for them. Sometimes, as Pastor Man said, it doesn't take you saying anything. It just takes you simply being there. Sometimes you don't need to be there. Sometimes they need to be within themselves, and then you're maybe not in that particular room. You might be in another one, but you're still there, right?
You're still there.
So it's a lot of ways to skin a cat, as some people say, but it's a lot of different ways and perspectives that you can come from it. But one thing that I do know is that as long as our hope is not built here, not built on the things that we have lost,
absolutely,
but built on Jesus Christ, which is a solid foundation. Which is consistent, constant, change not, doesn't sleep, doesn't slumber. We're
Go
good.
ahead, have the pastoral run to my son, Pastor. Go ahead,
We're
Elder.
but we're good. We're good, right?
Yeah.
That as long as our hope is built on that solid rock, we can keep going despite all of the different challenges that life's give us. So.
Absolutely. So we got our next segment.
Yeah, we're gonna keep going down this road. It's gonna get real, and we'll be right back.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
All right, we are back.
Yes.
We are back. And we have smiles on our face, not because of the fact that this topic is just so light and airy, but again, as we just talked about, where our hope is built. So we're going to talk about.
And also our producer who you can't see behind the scenes.
I was trying not to air him out. But yes, that is very much so true. By the way, we're going to get him before your faces. You're going to see him one day. He is shaking his head vehemently, but we are going to show you his face. But
we gotta get a topic that's going to get him over here.
Well, there's several. We see him on the sidelines all the time, but he's a little camera shy, y'all. You know, you have the people that's behind the camera and they don't want to be in front of the camera, but we're gonna get him in the camera soon and very soon.
Yes.
But we're now segueing into the real world, and one of the things that we want to have this episode for, and what's really important, is grief during the holidays. Mm-hmm. You know, that's when major. You look at Thanksgiving, there are some issues around there, but one of your largest times of suicides, of depression, is around the Christmas and New Year, New Year's Eve time. And so we know that this month is really, really, really tough for a lot of people, for a lot of reasons. And so we want to talk about grief during the holidays. How do we navigate that? How do we get through it? Yeah. You know, for both of us, we spent several holidays without our father, Pastor Man, longer than I have. And so how is that? I'll start with you, Pastor Man. How is that for you to, you know, not have your father around during the holidays? And how do you navigate that?
Yeah. So for me, I think it is interestingly significant in that my father passed away a week before Thanksgiving. And then my father-in-law, he just passed away a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And so his funeral was like 2 days before the passing of my father. And so like they're just 2 days apart. So both of the fathers, like my biological father and then my God-given father, have both passed like just before Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving used to always have a weird feeling for me. Like, I'm like, what am I thankful for? You know what I mean? And so I think one of the things for me has just been finding other things to be thankful for, right? That even though life doesn't look like how I wanted, that God has shown up for me as a father in so many ways that I can't count, ways that I can't tell the story. We'd be here forever if I told you all the testimonies of the way I've seen God be a father to me. And so for me, I am able to translate that thankfulness into external things as opposed to turning inward and kind of letting the darkness and the sadness kind of get to me. I think also a passion for me is serving around the holidays, right? Because one of the things I realize, and we've kind of talked about this too, is that when someone first passes away, there's all this love and all the plates and the food and the whatever we can do. But one thing about death is that life keeps going.
Yep.
And so while I'm still stuck in the issues of death, life is still going on, and people forget. The calls stop coming, the cards stop coming, the help stops coming, and you're just there with your grief. And so one of the things I found is like not waiting for people to come to you, but go be someone else's joy during those times. Like go serve in a homeless shelter. Go serve to other kids who are in maybe foster care. Like they don't have any parents, you know?
Correct.
So I think transferring for me has been very helpful around those times. Like you said, sitting with it. We have candles in our home. When we lose someone, we light their candle. I'm not doing witchcraft at home.
No,
don't. Because you know, the minute we start talking about lighting candles when people die, we be like, oh Lord. No, like it's just a symbol of honoring these people who are like, you know, I had to make that disclaimer. They be like, Pastor Man is lighting candles to the dead. No. But it is just a symbol in our home of things that we do during the holidays to show that these people were significant. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think for me, it's just about pouring into like my family members who are alive and well. I know this year in particular, I made it my mission to spend as much time with my aging relatives as possible. So my grandparents, my great aunts and uncles, people that are in like their 80s and 90s, and even 100. We actually went to a couple of celebrations this year for people who were 105 and 106.
You gotta have longevity in your DNA.
So God is a blessing in that regard. But I think pouring into the lives of people who are still here, and also focusing on them to the people who are alive, our mothers are still alive. So pouring into like mom and making sure she's good, and just trying to be, I don't know, a light and positivity during this time. Also to checking in with other people who might be going through similar things. And keeping your sanity too. A lot of people think about doing for everybody else, and they don't think about themselves. So like if I need a moment, I just need a moment.
Just need a moment.
Or if I don't really want to be around these particular people for whatever reason, I don't have to. I don't have to force myself. I'm not obligated to do that. So I think just navigating who I need to feed into, like you said before, from a servant. So I have that same mindset too, who I need to feed into, but also who I need to keep my distance from.
That part.
And keep my peace, and understand that their issues are not my issues. Their problems are not my problems. And that I can't be savior to other people because I'm not meant to be savior to anybody.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of times, especially if you are the meek, the mild, the easygoing family member, the loving one, everybody wants you to be that bridge for everybody and everything else. And it's like, no, I don't owe that, right? That's not necessarily my responsibility unless God has called me to do that.
Absolutely.
Not just because you deem that I should do it.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think for me, that is a way in which you kind of have those boundaries.
Absolutely.
and you know when to go, when to be still, and you celebrate those who are alive and who are well, because you don't know when it's going to be their last.
Absolutely. I would also say during the holidays, it's important during this time, at least for me, to protect my peace.
Yes.
Right? And so protecting my peace, or I maybe not necessarily even peace, but protecting my mental health.
Correct.
Right? So like I will never forget so my dad passed away, and then when I was at Oakwood, my grandmother passed away, my uncle passed away, and then my great grandmother passed away all the same week. Oof. Right. And I remember we were having like a movie night, and throwback for the millennials out there. We were watching Soul Food, and there's a scene where the grandma in Soul Food passes away, and I broke. Like I was sobbing. It was like all of the grief just came pouring out. I could not pull it together. I was in shambles, and I was like, maybe I probably shouldn't watch Soul Food when I'm not in a good headspace. And I could not watch Soul Food for a long time, right? And so when you are navigating grief, especially during this time, like if you're navigating the grief from a breakup, now is not the time to go listen to sad breakup songs. You know what I'm saying? Don't do that. No. Like if you are navigating, having to distance yourself from a family member, or maybe you lost a job, like now is not the time to go listen to songs that talk about revenge. Like that's just maybe not a good thing, you know what I mean? So, protecting your mental health. There's that family member that's going to ask you 50-11 questions, or that there's that person that has no boundaries and you just are not in that space. Protect your mental health. No is a complete sentence. No, I'm not coming to that event. No, I can't bring anything right now. Or I'm not in the right space. Or no, we can't watch that movie, right?
Correct.
Like, do not sit there and watch 50-11 Hallmark movies about love and marriage when you just called off your engagement. You gonna end up on the ledge. We don't want you on the ledge.
Oh, Lord.
So just protecting your peace by what you listen to, what you watch, what you allow into your mind and your spirit, it actually has an impact on your grief. Things can feel compounded when you're just layering stuff on top. So I think that's really important too.
Yeah, I want to talk about grief of a job loss as well, because a lot of people don't talk about that. They just talk about relatives, or they might talk about relationships. But job loss is a serious grief, and that's happening for a lot of people right now. Yes, the government is back open, But a lot of people lost their jobs,
Yeah,
literally,
that's very true.
over the last few months, and some earlier this year, and they've never got their jobs back. I want you all to be encouraged, because just because you lost your job does not mean that it is the end for you. Also, too, God can take pennies and He can stretch them wide, and you'd be surprised
Mercy.
what you can do on a budget. And so it's not over. It's not the end. The same God that gave you all the other jobs is the same God that can give you another opportunity. But the question is, what does God want you to do? Sometimes God allows us to lose things because He's preparing us for the next step that's better. And the holidays is a time to recoup, because you don't have the stresses of life so much. I was looking at something today or the other day, and they were like, the holidays, everybody seems a little bit nicer.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody
A little
seems
nicer.
like they're in a better mood.
A little bit more
right?
generous, benevolent.
Yeah. So take advantage. Rest. Okay, rest. When this happened to somebody I know who lost their job, like literally, they lost their job maybe less than 14 days before Christmas. And they were like angry. They were angry.
Absolutely.
And they got a job maybe 4 weeks afterwards, but Christmas had passed. New Year's had passed. And you're starting that, and you don't know what you're going to do. And literally, I was just like, don't worry about it.
Mercy.
This is the time to take a vacation. Go out of town. That sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. But this may be the only time you
get a
off
chance to
and
get a break.
You get a break and a mental break. Right. Maybe you needed that mental break. Maybe you were coming up on a health crisis that you didn't know and foresee, and you didn't need to be at work because you wouldn't be able to handle it.
Mercy.
Maybe something greater is coming, and God had to remove you out of what you're currently in so that you would walk into greater without any resistance.
Listen, sticky note. Y'all need to go back and watch Pastor Snell's sermon from a couple weeks ago. He talked about the same God who orders your steps is the same God who orders your stops. And so in the same way God keeps things going, sometimes God says, no, I need you to stop right here. I need you, we're going to put a period. This season has ended, and before a new season comes, I need you to pause right here. And I think it's so important as we examine grief, and you can go ahead and put in the chat, what are different types of grief we experience? We talked about death. We talked about job loss. We talked about relationship loss, but you can grieve, the thing that you thought was going to happen, but didn't happen. The promotion you were supposed to get this year that you didn't get, right? The house that you were about to close on, and then at the last minute, it fell through, right? The all of the different things. Sometimes we think we grieve things that didn't happen that we wanted to happen. So I think there's so many different types of grief that we forget about. But to your point, the same God who takes you there is the same God who pauses you where you are, and you can trust that God. So listen, if you need some hope in this season, please go listen to that sermon. It just encouraged me, with the different grief that we're trying to navigate right now. So, but listen, go ahead and let us know how you're navigating grief during the holidays, or maybe some tips, because we know we got all kind of professionals out there.
Yes, please. Yes.
So let us know, and then we're going to come back with our next session.
Yep, we're about to get all the way in our feelings.
In my feelings.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
All right, we are back.
We're back. Listen, this is our segment, In My Feelings, where we get all the way in our feelings. We talk about the stuff that makes you mad, sad, happy, all of the things. And this time we're talking about support group help, right? Do you think that support groups really help, or are they just a vent session? Is it just like a group of people to just, get your feelings out too, but they don't really do nothing? What do you think?
Mercy, I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I do think that they probably work, But sometimes you just don't want to join them. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You don't want to join the support groups. I'm sorry. Because you're like, I don't want to sit here and listen to these people be sad and what I call kumbaya sessions. I don't want to hear all of that. I don't want to participate in that. I'm good. I don't need no counseling. I just need some rest, right? But I think they are real. So I do encourage people to join them, but I don't think that they're for everybody. I'm sorry. I think it depends. Sometimes, like I said, you literally just don't want to hear certain people because their voices could irritate you.
Mercy.
Like literally, you're just like, okay, please stop talking.
Yeah.
Stop talking. Or sometimes like I said earlier, you don't want to go to that place. You literally don't want to go to that place of sadness. You just don't want to do it. You're like, okay, I'll do it when it comes, but I don't want to willingly walk into sadness.
Yes.
And sometimes that can be for some people, but I do think that it's helpful. I think it's helpful to have community, like you mentioned earlier, and these support groups can help with that. But I'm not gonna lie, there are the people out there that just like, I'm good. Keep me out the group chat, keep me out the kumbaya circle, keep me out the give my testimony problem situation all day circle and prayer line, keep me off. Some people just
Yes. And you know, it's so funny because I do think there are certain support groups that are disguised as prayer groups, which are disguised as gossip groups, right? I think that there are...
Don't call them out.
I'm just saying, I think there are certain groups that are labeled support groups. What they really are is just, they're like areas for people, like you said, to vent, to just, it's not productive, right? But I think the right support groups are super helpful. And I just think about, so again, I think about support groups, not necessarily in the traditional sense, like going to a room and we all hold hands and we say, my name is Kimberly and I am grieving. Hi, Kimberly. Like, I don't think that we have to do that. You know
Those
what I
are
mean?
real though.
I don't think we have to do that. But you know, I think having a group where you're saying, listen, I see you because I'm living what you're living in. So I think about grief, not necessarily death grief, but I remember when I had my babies and I had 2 babies under 2 and I was grieving showering. I was grieving being able
not showering, Lord mercy.
Yes, I was grieving smelling like a normal person and not smelling like baby throw up. I was grieving not being able to just get in my car and go where I wanted to go. I got to pack these kids up and take 11 things. I was grieving sleep. And I was angry. I was sad. I was emotional. And there was a group of moms, specifically, it was like Black moms with kids, with multiple kids under 2. It was very specific to my situation. And it was a bunch of moms who was like, yeah, so my baby threw up on me 3 times today. Me too. And it was helpful. Like just being able to know that you're not alone was so helpful, at least for me. And I know several moms in this community. We were actually kind of all moms around the same time. We all kind of were in the group. We didn't go to a building. It was very much on social media. But like it kept me sane, right? Yeah. At 2:00 in the morning, some other mom out there is awake cleaning up poop. And I don't feel alone. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be that. And the reason why I just use that example is because we're talking about grief, but grief doesn't just have to be death, right? Right. It could be, listen, somebody out there, the Lord is calling you to leave smoking weed. And there's a grief behind getting rid of addictions. There's a grieving that happens. This thing I'm familiar with that held me together, that I felt like was helpful. Now I can't have that anymore. Yeah. So I think finding support groups where people actually support you and they identify with you and they're going to hold you accountable, I think those things are very, very helpful.
Yeah, sometimes support groups don't have to necessarily be formal. It could just be... And it doesn't have to be your closest friends either. Like they don't necessarily have to be your support group either, but it could just be people, to your point, that you have a commonality with, or people that you do things with that forms this circle of relief, and it just indirectly becomes a support group as well. So, I mean, there's different ways to do it, but I'm not gonna lie, support groups do not have a good rep. Like, again, you think about the AA meetings where you sitting in the circle or you're sitting in the theater style and my name is so-and-so and I'm an addict.
But research shows that people who don't go to their AA meetings are more likely to end up going back into alcohol.
True.
So I think there's a method to why support groups are necessary. I think finding the right one.
Yeah.
Because the wrong one will make you do the things that you're in the support group.
But now let's talk about this, because a lot of times people want to make one person their whole support group. Like literally just
that part right there.
It was like, I'm your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and I signed up to be your support group on this. So what about those situations where the support group is an army of one and it's not really a group?
Yeah.
It's just the two of y'all.
Well, I think that's unfair. You're asking. So here's the other part about a support group. The reason why Alcoholics Anonymous support group work is because they're anonymous. Like they're random people with a commonality. I think that sometimes we want the people closest to us to be our support group when they can't carry all that. Like they can't hold that because they're so close to you, right? You need people who are going to be like, you need to get up and wash your face and get moving. And sometimes when the person is too close, they don't carry that same weight or that same accountability because they don't want you to be sad. They're going to feed into what habits or things you may be doing. So I think when you try to make the person closest to you or a support group of one, you do yourself a disservice. But think about how many relationships ended or end because we put all of that baggage on one person to carry and then be like, you weren't there for me when I was, well, what is like being there for you? What does that look like? Does that mean I'm supposed to sleep in your bed, sit at your house, cook all your meals, wipe all your tears? And I think that for real, and I'm not gonna go into church, but I think we as church folk, we do too much. We be trying to be all things to all the people. And then when we can't, we're like, the church didn't show up for me, or this person wasn't there for me. This person ain't Jesus. They cannot be omnipresent and omniscient and do all the things.
Yeah, I think it's not fair. I don't think it's fair to put that much on a person. But then I also I don't know. I don't want people. So the flip side of it, right? Even if you don't want to be in a group, I also don't want people to retreat and be by themselves.
Okay.
Because sometimes you actually do need to be around other people. Like you actually don't need to be by yourself on the holiday for whatever reasoning. You actually probably should go out and be amongst other people, or you should be with at least another person. Right. So I think I don't know. It just depends on what it is, who it is, and I don't like. Now this is what I don't like. I don't like when people force people into support group situations or condemn them for not joining that situation when they feel that they should do it. So I don't like that part. Like, for example, your father-in-law died. You need to join the group that's the grief ministries group that deals with this, and then you need to do that, and you need to do this. And it's like, okay, he just died. Can I wrap my head around the fact that he just died, accept it, and then consider? I don't like when people put their timelines on when you need to get into a group.
Absolutely. And I think part of that is it goes back to people not knowing what to say. They don't know how to deal with people who are grieving. As we were talking, I was just thinking about so my father-in-law passed away, but that's my husband's dad, right?
Correct.
And so ultimately, I am navigating my own grief, but he is navigating a different kind of grief, right? And I think, being supportive of their grief process while not trying to take over it for them or not trying to release them from it. Because, sometimes when you see people sad, you want to be like, no, don't feel sad. No, feel better. What can I do to make it better? And sometimes you just have to be like you said, let them have that moment. Let them be in that moment. And sometimes it's okay to say, I don't know how to help you in this moment, but here's somebody that does. Or, hey, maybe you need to go talk to somebody else. There is a group or a counselor or a psychologist that you can go talk to that keeps me from having to carry that burden and maybe not carry it well, because I see that happen all the time. When people don't support us the way we want them to, it turns into bad blood. That person, grandma died 20 years ago and you still mad that so-and-so didn't bring you a pie or so-and-so didn't call you. And it's like, we shouldn't do that to people. So I think Support groups also help take the onus off of one singular person. And it gives you something to do. Like you said, sometimes you don't need to be in the house by yourself. If you're in the house by yourself too much, that's called depression, okay?
Yep.
You lose interest in things. You don't want to go anywhere. People are inviting you. You don't want to go. Too much of that is called depression, right?
It's not good.
So that's not good. We don't want to get stuck in a cycle of depression. So maybe you don't want to go out. Have a little small something in, right? You can have a small little situation, a little, Friendsgiving? And I was going to call it friendationship, but we don't want friendationships. We just like have a little.
What is that? I don't even know.
A friendationship? A friendationship is when you got a whole lot of friends who do multiple things for you. And you in a situationship, but you call them friends. So we don't want that. Don't be in friendationships.
Wow. Okay.
Right? Like, don't use relationships as your support group. Don't use intimacy as your support group.
Nah. Yeah. Woo. Oh,
Don't
mercy.
use
That's a whole.
substances as your support group.
Yeah, that's a whole nother intimacy as a support group, because that's weaponizing intimacy.
Absolutely. And we don't want to do that.
And then what type of intimacy? That's a whole nother conversation, because if it ain't between husband and wife and it's sexual intimacy, we definitely don't want to be doing that.
Right. Because you don't want to be grieving and then grieve what you did while you were grieving.
Oof. Mercy.
That part.
I don't know what group is going to support that, but yeah. No, and also, by the way, folks, don't be that person that takes advantage of people in the support group where you don't really have a problem, but you join a support group just to get in a relationship or get something else from somebody else. That's just wrong.
That's it right there.
WWJD. What would Jesus do?
People who prey on the grieving. Listen, don't be that person that sees somebody grieving, and because you've been in the friend zone for 12 years, now you use that as your end to now be the shoulder they cry on and the person don't do that. Like,
it's not gonna work out for you, okay?
Exactly.
You weren't it in the good times, all right?
You can't be it in the bad times, okay? Because once the good times come back, they gonna forget about you. But listen, so listen, we know that during the holidays, it can be really, really tough. But one of the things you want to make sure that in terms of even support groups, that every group you're in is not a sad group. You want to surround yourself with people who bring joy, who bring laughter, who can, bring some smiles to your face, to your life, to your situation. Because that's definitely a good recipe or remedy for grief.
Yes, and so we hope that you all have enjoyed this episode. We really want you to share it with everyone. We all have grieved something, okay?
Absolutely.
All of us, just like all of us have sinned, all of us have grieved at some point, or maybe grieving right now. 2025 was rough. It came in hot, and it's ending very interestingly.
Hot.
Yes, and so there's a lot that happened this year, so much that we can't cover in an episode, but we do want to encourage you to know again that Jesus loves you, that we love you, we care for you. No weapon formed against you will prosper. Grief is not the end.
Absolutely.
It is just something that we all have to go through because of this sin-filled world. But our hope is built on our eternal life.
Absolutely.
With God.
And I also want to jump in here and say, if at the end of this episode or even during this episode you feel triggered, or you are in a space where you are in need of community, you are in need of help, you are in need of support, we want to encourage you to reach out to your local church, your local pastor. There are support groups online that you can join. And then there's a national number. I can't remember the number right now, but there is a number that you can dial, and it connects you to a hotline right away, and you can talk to someone. If you just Google like the national, I think it's the National Suicide Hotline, you can dial that number, and no, the police aren't going to show up at your house or anything like that, but it's just someone who you can talk to right then and there, who you can kind of just process your grief with. We want to encourage you to seek support, to seek help, to not just pray about it, but Jesus and therapy. I'm always going to be a proponent for that. If you're really going through a tough time, to please let somebody know, to not go through it by yourself, because we are proof that everybody is navigating some type of grief and some type of thing. So we love you. We want you to be hopeful. We want you to protect your peace, surround yourself with good people and good things. And we will see you in the new year.
Yes. Happy holidays. May God richly bless you as we continue throughout 2025. And we look forward to seeing you in 2026. This is our Cube Table Talks, where we keep it real,
where we keep it relevant,
and where we keep it raw.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.